Olivia Cook, who plays Allison, she's on record saying that her and Rhaenyra, their characters, they've looked at each other and sometimes it's like, oh, if it were just us and none of these men, then everything would be okay. That's kind of a different message than what we see from the books.
The point of the show seems to be like, man, the world is really unfair to women. And am I right? Is that the point of the show? And is that reflective of how women feel? Is the world just absurdly unfair to women?
Well, I think we got a lot to talk about here because we have the message that the books and George R.R. Martin is trying to convey, the message the showrunner is trying to convey, and then what the world is actually like. And all of these things, in my opinion, are different. Right? Because obviously, like your cousin, I think you said it was, Josh, he's right. If you actually look at the lore behind Dance of the Dragons, obviously, Rhaenyra and Allison, they end up kind of being, honestly, the ones behind this huge power struggle that ends up killing a bunch of people, a bunch of dragons end up dying. I don't think that's a spoiler because, like, obviously that, like, this is the point of the show. So I think George R.R. Martin, he's a lot more of the opinion that the power for struggle is evil. It is part of who everyone is, man or woman, and women can have their own ambitions as well. We saw that with Cersei Lannister. George R.R. Martin's writings, they're feminist in that they present men and women as equals, but they're not feminist in the sense that we see nowadays so often where it's men bad, women good, right? So I think the actual story that your cousin referring to, he's right. They're not the good guys at the end of the day. It's not a pro-woman storyline. However, if we look at what the showrunners and the actors involved with the series have said, we see that HBO is taking kind of a different spin on this because Olivia Cook, who plays Allison, she's on record saying that her and Rhaenyra, their characters, they've looked at each other and sometimes it's like, oh, if it were just us and none of these men, then everything would be okay. That's kind of a different message than what we see from the books and the idea that, ultimate power and the quest for it corrupts everybody. So I think you're right. And we kind of started to see with this episode more than the first episode that there's really that heavy agenda, right? We are seeing more and more that, all right, these women are being pitted against each other as like, and not only against the men, but also against each other, but almost as these helpless figures that we are just subject to the whims of our reality, whereas the men are in control of everything. If we look at how reality was, even in terms of the Middle Ages, which this lore is based off of, yes, women had rights denied to them, but so did men, right? You didn't want to be a serf or a peasant or a warrior. This was not a good time for anybody. Even if you want to put yourself in the place of the king in this, Viserys, he doesn't want to have to marry a child bride when his wife just died. No one in this situation is having a good time. And I think that would almost be a better, more poignant message to assert that, like, when some of our rights are denied, ultimately all of our rights are denied. But instead, I am more and more worried about we're going to be getting some woke messaging shoved down our throat the longer this show goes on.